As we come together today, we want to go over John 5:1. And this is when Jesus heals a lame man. And so it goes on and it says, after Jesus returned to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish holy days, inside the city near the sheep gate was a pool of Bethesda with 5 covered porches. So here's Jesus. He's returning to Jerusalem. And he's near the sheep gate. And there's a pool there. And there's 5 covered porches. And there's crowds of sick people, blind people, lame people, paralyzed people. And they lay on these porches by the water. And then what would happen is an angel of the Lord would come from time to time and stir up the water. And the first person to step down into the water afterwards was healed. So all these people gathered there that were sick, that were blind, that were lame, that were paralyzed. And they would be there at the edge of the water. And when the water rippled, they would try to be the first one in and to get healed. Now, one of the men laying there had been sick for 38 years. So there was a man there that had been sick for 38 years. Can you imagine? 38 years. When Jesus saw him and knew how long he had been ill, he asked him, would you like to get well? Would you like to get well? So Jesus knew the man that was sick. He knew the man had been there for 38 years. And so he said to them, would you like to get well? And so we need to think about the response here. Because here's what the man said. I can't, sir, the sick man said, for I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred up. So Jesus didn't ask him that. Jesus said, do you want to be well? The man answered, I can't. I can't. And so many times we're the same way. We have an excuse. God tells us what to do. We have the scriptures. We understand things, but we don't always do it. So here's this man that had been sick for 38 years. Jesus comes up to him and asks him a very simple question. Do you want to be healed? Do you want to be well? And the man says, I can't. I can't. I can't. And with Jesus, there's no such word as can't. Because Jesus could do all things. All things. All things. He says, for I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred up. So he'd been waiting, trying to get in. But he was focused on getting into the water instead of focusing on God. While I'm trying to get there, someone always gets in ahead of me. Someone always gets in ahead of me. So Jesus told him, stand up. Pick up your sleeping mat. I can hardly walk. Pick up your sleeping mat and walk. So Jesus, he said, pick up your mat and walk. He told him what to do. Instantly, the man was healed. When Jesus spoke, he was healed. When Jesus speaks through his word, or when we're praying and he tells us what to do, things happen. Miracles happen. He's the God of the impossible. He's the God that makes the crooked path straight. So we need to trust. We need to believe. And we need to rely on him. So the man said, I can't. He had an excuse. But Jesus ignored him. And he said, pick up your mat. Pick up your mat and walk. And the man picked up his mat, and he was instantly healed. He rolled up his mat and began walking. But you know, the things in the world are strange. Even when Jesus does miracles, some people resist. But this miracle happened on a Sabbath day. So the Jewish leaders objected. They said to the man who was cured, "You can't work on the Sabbath. It's illegal to carry that sleeping mat. Where are you going with that sleeping mat? This is the Sabbath. There's work involved there." But he replied, "The man who healed me said to me, 'Pick up your sleeping mat and walk.'" So he explained to him what had happened, why he was walking with his sleeping mat. Can you imagine the religious leaders? They weren't happy that he was healed. They were complaining that he was carrying his mat on a Sunday, on a Sabbath. "Who said such a thing as that?" they demanded. The man didn't know, for Jesus had disappeared into the crowd. He wasn't sure who told him to pick up the mat. He wasn't sure where he was because he had just disappeared in the crowd. But afterwards, Jesus found him in the temple and told him, "Now you are well." He looked him right in the eye and he said, "Now you are well. So stop sinning, or doing something even worse may happen to you." So you have to have a life change. You were sick for 38 years. Now you're healed. Don't go back to your old ways. Focus on me. Focus on God. Focus on the things that are important in life. Then the man went to find the Jewish leaders and told them it was Jesus who had healed him. So we see a lot of things in this scripture. One, we see that the man was sick for 38 years. And he couldn't get into the pool. So he'd never been healed. But when Jesus said to him, "Do you want to be well?" he said, "I can't." You know, when we're sick, when we're broke, when we have a difficulty, a lot of times we blame it on somebody else. I don't have a good job. I don't have transportation. I don't have this or I have that. But that's not the proper answer. Because the proper answer is to look to Jesus, to trust in him, to tell him, "Yes, Jesus, I want you to heal me. Yes, Jesus, I want you to help me find that job. Yes, Jesus, I want you to straighten out my finances. I trust you. I believe in you, and I'm going to follow you." And so once this man, that Jesus healed him, he also instructed him not to go back to his old ways. And that's what Jesus is telling us today. When we have a breakthrough, when God helps us, when we understand the way, we can't go back to our old ways because that gets us in trouble. Every day, every minute, every week, every month, we have to focus on Jesus. He's our answer in every situation. So it doesn't matter who we are, where we live, what the problem is. The answer is always Jesus. 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 And listen, we have to understand that there's no excuse. We can't say I can't, because we can all believe. We can all believe in Jesus. And as we believe, and as we trust, and we make him the Lord over our lives, we see miracles happen. So you need miracles. I need miracles. We all need miracles. And that's why we need Jesus. So we look to him in every single situation. We trust in him and believe in him because he's the miracle worker.